hello? I'll have one large pizza with everything on it. Yeah. Can you deliver it? Yeah, okay. Okay, I love you. Goodbye.
Man, I should go see the doctor or something. I feel really flat all of a sudden. Then again, I kinda like it. Maybe I'll stay this way. You know, it really gets under your skin. First it's annoying, and then you kinda get the ball rolling, if you know what I mean. Just like Lower Decks. Well, off to the doctor to become 3D again, for whatever that's worth.
This isn't those old starships. This is those old scientists. Yeah, I kind of didn't interpret it right the first time I heard it. Way back in Lower Decks, what was it, season 2? Perhaps? Maybe I'm wrong. Someone uttered the term, those old scientists, the phrase, TOS. Get it? I was thinking to myself, shouldn't it be those old starships? That would have been way better. And then they say, oh, they were scientists of a sort. In this episode, they do say old starships. Maybe calling it those old scientists in itself was the joke, and I just didn't really get it. You know, the way Lower Decks is. Do it the stupid way. The rule of stupid. If we can do it cool, if we can do it smart, that's not good enough. But if we can do it stupid, let's do it that way. Notice I'm not complaining. Something like Lower Decks, the rule of stupid is king. And I'm proud to say, though, this is a Strange New Worlds episode through and through. The rule of stupid is not king here. The rule of thoughtful, introspective, simple, sublime shines through here. This is Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 7 already. We got it like a week early. Totally ruining my schedule. It felt like I just did the last review. It takes me a while to recharge. This is those old scientists. Bordering on experimental. Could have easily been absolute garbage. I wouldn't say it's absolute gold. Many reviewers would say that. I think I was probably supposed to absolutely love this one. I didn't absolutely love it. It's held down by a few nagging issues. How do you have a show where it switches mediums? I would even venture to say genres. The start of it, it's Lower Decks. The middle is Strange New Worlds. And it goes back to Lower Decks. What does that mean? We're going to find out in this review. This episode starts off on the Cerritos. We're on the Cerritos. We're just watching Lower Decks. Who would have thunk it? We're going to this planet, Cultith, something like that. I don't feel like going back and looking, but it was some hard to pronounce thing. Mariner even mispronounces it, so me and Mariner were in the same camp on this. To put it simple, there's a portal. Don't we love portal things? We have to go look at the portal. Let's make sure it does portal stuff. We're going to get lots of portal science. Am I annoying you? The first section of this episode, the Lower Decks section, didn't feel like Lower Decks to me. It felt like Lower Decks times a million. They were really trying to drive it home. I don't know about what they were thinking, but this is Lower Decks on steroids, and I almost had to turn it off. It was just screaming at me. The dialogue at the beginning of this, I don't know. I didn't find it funny. I like Lower Decks. And this was out of control. Saying the same thing over and over again. It just did a thing. Help me, it's doing portal stuff. I'm getting portaled. Harebrained dialogue. But to the extreme. I like it more in Lower Decks. But seeing it here, I don't know if it's clashing or if it really is pound for pound more intense than Lower Decks. But the way this opening section is written, is this trying to give you a feeler for what Lower Decks is like if you haven't watched it? I mean, hey, if it's Lower Decks on steroids, you could say this is your crash course, right? Lower Decks is like that, but to a much lesser degree. So if you're the type of person that hates this type of dialogue, it's not that bad in Lower Decks. But for me, in Strange New Worlds, seeing this, very off-putting. We're going down to the surface of this planet. Mariner's on this mission. Oh, isn't it boring? Wink, wink. But we know Mariner by now. If you'd watched Lower Decks, you'd know that Mariner secretly loves this stuff. She pretends it's boring, and she's not fooling anyone. Least of all me, having seen Lower Decks all the way up to this point. I do wonder what benefit you're getting, having seen Lower Decks beforehand. How does this episode play for someone who's never seen it? I'm curious about that. We need to take readings on it. It's long dormant. Okay? Rutherford, Tendi, Boimler, Mariner, the whole gang. The gang's all here. What's going on with this portal? We're doing some scans. What do you think's going to happen? Cool looking portal, by the way. It's like one regular circle, toroidal shape. Inserted into it is this bent shape and a regular one. Pretty cool. That's beside the point. We accidentally activate it. Surprise. Anytime you find a portal that's deactivated, guess what, baby? You're going through it. But it's a time portal. Time travel is back again. Not the biggest fan, but here it is. I hate to sound like a broken record on that, but it's common now, isn't it? It feels like we just had time travel a few moments ago. The episode tomorrow. Boimler ends up in Strange New Worlds zone. He ends up in TOS. He ends up in the world of those old scientists. The Enterprise is on mission, though, to deliver grain. They're delivering grain. They have holds, storages, compartments, containers full of grain to go to Setlik, the Setlik system. If you're wondering why that's significant, just wait around for a century and a bit until you meet Miles O'Brien, where Setlik comes into play. I won't go into that here. It's beyond the scope of this review, but we need to deliver this grain. Not unlike Trouble with the Tribbles. If you'd watched that episode, you'd know that the shipping of grain to a colony was an important thing to get right, and it's important here as well because grain is food. Triticale, something they call it. In our TOS, they called it something different. But things just got very complicated. It's not very fun when you're trying to deliver much needed food to a colony and you end up with a time travel in your midst. What do we do now? You just threw a temporal wrench into the works, and I have to wonder if at this point Starfleet has some kind of protocol for where temporal occurs. We have to just drop everything and solve it, but we still have to continue with this grain with Boimler in tow. And I must say, just as a surface level observation, Boimler comes through this portal. He's bringing Lower Decks with him. He's like a Lower Decks character fused into Strange New Worlds. And I get this vibe that when you try to clash those two together, Boimler has become the audience. His performance is that of a fan. Did you notice this? I'm wondering, is this secretly extremely clever to have a character who is the fans? Specifically, the obsessed fans. He is obsessed with the Enterprise. Totally possible. He's going into the past. He could know everything about this ship. As we would. Isn't that curious? We have, in the truest sense of sci-fi, we have a sci-fi scenario that explores a situation that would otherwise be impossible without the sci-fi scenario around it. Time travel. We take someone back, we'll call them a history buff, into the history that they were studying. So, in a way, he represents the fans. That's just how I interpret this episode. It's no secret that he walks around the ship saying, oh, this is that. This is this type of interface here. Oh, Worf's honor, haha. That's what we would do. And now we see it in the canon of Strange New Worlds. Does that work for you? Or is that a little bit off-putting? Is that breaking the fourth wall? Is that strange? For me, It was a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Boimler walking around, saying the things he said. Same goes for Mariner later. Didn't really love it, but it kind of makes sense. Kind of sums up my feeling about this whole episode, by the way. Not to spoil my final review, score-wise. Somehow, Pike doesn't just confine Boimler to makeshift quarters for him. They don't just stick him in the brig. I don't know why. I have no clue why this keeps happening. How is it that people just keep ending up on the bridge? Boimler just walks right onto the bridge. Boimler, you stand right there. Don't touch anything. Boimler proceeds to touch everything, say everything, do whatever he wants. I mean, I thought Boimler was a little bit more of a stickler than that for these rules, but I guess I was wrong. He continues to break rule after rule after rule after rule. I guess it's just sheer luck that we didn't ruin the future, because it seems to be, from the narrative of this episode, that we are in the single timeline idea of time travel, where something we do now can ruin our future. We're not in the multiple timeline idea here. Or are we? I don't know. Not to delve too deeply into the speculation idea here of this not really being our TOS. I mean, it is curious that Boimler isn't looking around for Chekhov. He isn't looking around for, Sulu. Even though he knew Sulu. He met Sulu in a dream sequence before. Now he's like, he doesn't come up, like he knows exactly what era this is. Like, it's a little bit too much. I would have thought it was cool if he made a mistake, right? He's too accurate, which has some strange implications. Like, wouldn't it have been cool if he had said, he went down to Medbay and was looking around for somebody, and then he saw Mbenga, and he just said, "Oh." Something like that, Methinks Boimler is a little bit too accurate with his history. I think it could have been funnier to have some more mistakes thrown in. Again, we're reviewing this based on what it is, not based on what I wanted. So I don't like to get too into the weeds about these things. However, there is an Orion ship. We better get off the surface of this planet. We better do what we need to do with this grain. And we got to get Boimler the heck back to his time before something goes dastardly wrong. According to Boimler, this is a peaceful vessel. This Orion ship. Thank you. Thank God. Thank every deity that he is right on that. Just from being from the future doesn't mean you were just immediately correct that this is not a pirate ship. If I would be sweating bullets if I thought there was a shred of a chance I could have been wrong that this was actually a pirate vessel. So thank you, but it turns out to be a science vessel ultimately in the end. Good one, Boimler. Way to go. Thanks for not being wrong on that one. The ship gets away, unfortunately. I mean, had they have attacked it, would they have damaged the portal? Would it have changed events anyhow? I don't know. But they transport the portal into their ship, fly away with it. Now Boimler can't go home. We've made a big mistake here. If we can't get that portal back, we're stuck with Future Man. We're stuck with Future Man being on our ship, causing all kinds of problems. Curiously, I wonder if where the portal was in space has something to do with its time travel capabilities. Could someone have come through the portal and ended up on the Orion ship after they transported it away? If the Orions had gotten away with that time travel device and it continued to operate, who's to say that our future isn't the plaything of the worst people in Orion society? The people who would abuse it, right? that would be very frightening. So it makes one wonder, does Starfleet have a protocol just to destroy it, just to hide it, just to make sure nobody else gets it, so they can put it where it belongs, in a museum? I don't know. But there's a certain logic to it that only comes to fruition after you think about it, and it gets weirder and weirder and weirder. As soon as you start messing with time, you start to wonder what's real, what's not real. Is this the real timeline? I wish Guinan was here so I could ask her. Boimler isn't going home. We have to find that Orion ship. We can't track it. We have no means to track it. Thankfully, Future Man is here to save the day. Guys, just don't look. I'll do these modifications to your sensors. We'll track the Orions. You don't have to see it. Guess what? The ship's recorder is going to know. You can't hide anything from the ship recorder. It's going to know everything that happened. Starfleet headquarters is going to be like, what's going on in this section of time on the Enterprise's ship recorder? What did you do? You're going to have to explain that. So many problems you just can't get around. But in the context of this episode, we do find the Orions. We do find them because of Boimler's modifications. The Orions, according to Boimler, are going to see it as a sign of respect when we offer to trade. So we do trade our grain that we desperately need for people who need food. We trade it for the portal. I'll leave it up to you as to what you think is more important. On the one hand, you have food for people who need it. On the other hand, you have a potentially extremely dangerous time travel device. Think hard about that one. The portal's beamed back to where it belonged. Orion's got their grain. There's one problem. This portal runs on a thing called heronium. You'll note it was used in the hull of the NX-01, the NX-class ships. And at this moment, I was thinking, oh, please, just show me an NX class. Just give me a crumb. Please. I'm waiting. I'll take a drip, a drop. I'm waiting by that sewer pipe to just get a drop of that goop. Please, I need to see it. We don't see it. I can't docket the points. It's not right to just complain about what should have been. But I would have been a lot happier if we had seen an NX-01 ship. Oh my gosh, we have to go get one out of mothballs to go get the heronium off it. Yes. No, we don't. It only has enough for one trip. Conveniently, as soon as it lands back where it came from on this planet, Kethlahu, whatever it is, Lower Decks again is back, except this time it's Mariner. And as soon as Mariner shows up and you get two of these lower deckers together, it becomes a lot harder for me to watch. It becomes just harder to reconcile. I mean, nothing against Mariner, but Mariner brings that mile-a-minute dialogue from Lower Decks, which seems like something Boimler was not really doing on his own. Perhaps this is establishing Mariner as being the most lower-decky character in Lower Decks. And wow, is it remarkable or not, that these characters look like the characters they were. These are the voice actors. They look like who they were supposed to look with. We are very fortunate for that. Had they been a little bit too different, this could have been a bit confusing. Boimler looked a little bit older to me than I expected him to look, but in context, there was a lot of jokes about Boimler looking like a boy, even though he's an adult. So it's kind of actually working for me in a weird sort of way. Was that the intention? I don't know, but it was working for me. I mean, you could needle into it forever about how these characters don't look or feel exactly like they did in their animated version, but I'm just going to leave it at that. It's a miracle we got what we got. I'll put it that way. Scenes between Mariner and Uhura didn't really feel extremely natural to me. Mariner had this idea that Uhura was this cool person who was cool because she had a life outside of work. only to discover it was kind of the opposite, which maybe the life outside of work thing was something that would come later. However, scenes between Uhura, Ortegas, and Mariner really worked for me. They felt like they made natural friends, fast friends. Ortegas, Mariner, Uhura, that trio. There was a lot of chemistry there, if I can put it that way. Please delete whatever you were doing on that pad. They say this to Boimler. Delete everything. We don't want to know. We also didn't really want to know that there could be a party soon for Pike. According to Boimler, Captain Pike's birthday is like a holiday. Of course, right? Everything that's normal to us in the context of the fan base, as it were, is sacred to them in the future because these things are written backwards. Right? Like, the things that are important to us become important to the characters in the show because, wink wink, we're fans too, guys, the writers. I just got that feeling. It's not really necessarily the truth, but I had this feeling. It's bordering on cringe. The rampant self-congratulatory dialogue in this episode was bordering on cringe for me. You guys are so cool. Worf's honor, all that stuff, yada yada yada. Pike's birthday is a holiday. Does Starfleet just revolve around the Enterprise all the time? There's got to be more stuff going on, am I right? Please, don't credit Boimler for telling everyone that it's Pike's birthday and that's a holiday. Please, no credit. Don't say I did that. Maybe he had inadvertently invented the Pike holiday thing. Who's to say? But after a thoughtful conversation between Pelia and Boimler, by the way, we're 7 episodes in. We still didn't get the big Pelia victory episode. I'm waiting. Guys, what happened to Angel? What happened to Cybok? Are the Gorn coming back? You know, those things that were established as what would be major fixtures for this show going forward in Strange New Worlds. Those things. We're 7 episodes in and we're not really resolving things. Like, we're just kind of leaving it. How full throttle are the last 2 episodes of this season really going to be? We're going to have to pack in a lot of stuff to, nip those things in the bud, I would say. Also, Mariner, Ortegas, Uhura are enjoying some fake Orion drinks mixed up by our resident bartender now, Mariner, although they don't have the real thing. They don't have real Orion Delac. So it lacks a certain je ne sais quoi, we'll say. Put a pin in that one for later. Pelia tells Boimler, listen, here's this thing I read on a Hallmark card one time. Just pretend to be the person you want to be, and eventually, you'll become that person. Okay. Who I want to be is someone who steals the grain back from the Orions because starving people needed it. That's who I want to be. A thief. Somehow, I guess that's how Boimler gets the idea to steal a shuttle, along with Mariner in this case. Blast shield, it's a blast shield, blah, blah, blah. They get caught by La'an. They were contacting the Orion ship. It has its own internal communication system separate from the Enterprise. The Orions are contacted, and let me tell you, Pike looks mad. I liked Pike here. I was getting this perhaps false impression that Pike was a little bit of a pushover this season. He ain't right now, and for a moment I felt genuinely scared of what Pike was going to do. He looked mad. You know, you're in the principal's office now. Boimler, Mariner, I want you to see me in my quarters right now. I felt like secondhand fear for Mariner and Boimler. I knew nothing was going to happen. But Pike, for a moment, really sold it. He looked really angry, genuinely mad. You guys are causing a lot of problems in my ship, you know. The Orions got away with the time travel device. In order to get it, we had to trade our grain away that we needed for this very important mission. And now you're saying all these strange things on my ship about the future, things we shouldn't know. And what's this I hear about a party for me? We realize later that, of course, we're in New Trek. So, Pike has a problem with his dad. He's got some things hanging out there that he hasn't quite resolved. And he's upset about his family and his past and his future. I guess Pike only likes his present. I guess he just likes the present. He likes to live in the moment. He likes to cook. Cooking distracts him from his dad. I guess we could extrapolate that, right? That's not too far of a stone's throw away, is it? That he cooks to get away from his dad. I'm just making that up just for fun. And this is the first time, his first birthday, that he's going to be older than his dad was, when he died. And this is something ripped straight out of Star Trek Beyond, if you've seen that movie, which is fine. You can rip stuff out of Star Trek Beyond. It's a different timeline. It's up for grabs. And they grabbed it up from Star Trek Beyond. Because that conversation between, and at that point, I think McCoy and Kirk was verbatim, basically. I'm glum because this is the first birthday I'm having without my dad, because I'm a year older now, or whatever it was, than he ever got to be. And it bothers Kirk, and here it bothers Pike, and Pike was planning on just spending the time alone, drinking. He was spending the time alone, day drinking, and then pissing his pants in front of everybody, and then having to be dragged by the heel to Mbenga's office to explain why he was that drunk in front of everybody, and how much damage he did to the chain of command. Not speaking from experience, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. However, Boimler has an idea. Boimler's here to save the day. Future Man causes the problems. Future Man fixes the problems. Listen, the NX-01, that was built out of a heronium. It was in the alloy. It gave it that cool shade of gray. Guess what? We established this last season. That ships in Starfleet, when they bear the same name, they take a piece of the old ship with them. So somewhere on the ship, there's some heronium. It's not on the hull like you might have assumed. It's in the floor of the engineering room. Man, it would have been sick if they had to go out into the hull to get a piece of heronium, but that's not what happened. We did it the cheap way, and we just found it down in engineering. And Spock, previously in this episode, him and Spock Boimler and Spock working together, had failed to synthesize some artificially. Laughs were had by all. But now they don't have to do it that way. Now they can just copy the heronium they found. The heronium found in the engineering floor of the Enterprise was used to create a structure of heronium that could be fit into the portal to recharge it. So guess what? We can go back now. But the Orions have arrived too. Boimler and Mariner, they called them. Guess what, guys? It's considered offensive where I come from to pretend that all Orions are pirates. And we don't think you're pirates. And actually, our friend Tendi, her grandmother was on that ship. Astria Tendi. Yes, I know that. And I would just like to point out that the Orion captain, for what little time he has, throws out a fantastic performance. I don't know if you noticed this, but he felt very believable. And I swear I've seen that actor before. Maybe it was in Star Trek, maybe it was in something else. I don't know. But I know I've seen him. But he really drives it home. Yes, we have Astria Tendi on our ship. And then they say, listen, how about this? You give us the grain, and we'll say Orion scientists found this portal. All we had to do was just give them the discovery. I say, that's all I ever wanted. It's Star Trek. Just give them the win. They gave the Orions the win. I guess they were scientists. Hey, they're not all pirates. It's a good thing, though. Boimler was right about that. It's a good thing he was right. It's not all sunshine and buttercups. Sometimes that thing that looks dangerous really is dangerous. let's just be aware of that in outer space. But for the purpose of this episode, we had a fun, non-fighting ending. And I really like that. The Orions get the win. We get the grain. We put the Heronium into the portal. Boimler and Mariner go back. Live long and prosper. You live too. I love you. Goodbye. That's not exactly what he said. But, it felt like that to me. Like, hello, I'll have one large pizza with everything on it. Yeah. Can you deliver it? Yeah, okay. Okay, I love you. Goodbye. It's getting that vibe. Boimler strikes me as the type of character that tells someone over the phone working at the pizza place that he loves them. Or he goes to the theater and enjoy the movie. Yeah, you too. You know those things you can never really come back from? Those things that haunt you when you're trying to sleep at night? Boimler and Mariner go back to their time, and we realize that Mariner really did fight to go on that mission. Aw, Mariner, you wanted to go on that mission. Not really, I'm just a delinquent. And you better believe it. Classic Mariner stuff at the end, I guess. You'd know this had you watched Lower Decks. Remember how we didn't get the real Orion Delac? We got it now from the Orions. And that's why we have a sequence at the end where all of our characters are drunk on Orion liquor with real Delac in it, which gives them a bizarre hallucination in which they all look 2D. They all feel flat. Should my arm be able to do this? Were my eyes always this big? Was I always throwing out quips a mile a minute like I'm in some cartoon? They never say that. I just inferred it. If you can't tell, the Lower Deck style, it clashes, but it's a miracle that it wasn't a disaster. I'll say that. I feel like I was supposed to love it, but I'm being honest with all you guys here. I wasn't really in love with this episode, didn't hate it either. Musically, there's a few fun moments, but it was disappointing to me to not have the Lower Decks theme sneaking in to the Strange New World sequences. I think that would have been neat, because I do love the Lower Decks intro music. It has that classic feel. It has that interesting melody. Would have been cool to see it here. Didn't get it. Instead, we got some interesting pieces that, to me, resemble the music from TMP when we first meet the Enterprise. You'll notice this when Boimler first beams onto the Enterprise. He's discovering the Enterprise the same way we rediscovered it in TMP, the motion picture. And the music reflects that. It has the same feel. Don't know if that was intentional, but I liked it. Visually, I mean, you're seeing the Lower Decks uniforms in quote-unquote real life. All of the boots look really strange. The boots didn't work for me. They didn't translate properly. I could have used a few more passes on those. The Orion ship looks cool. The Enterprise looks cool doing what it does. We got to see the shuttle bay of the Enterprise from outside and then go into it and see exactly how everything is shaped in there. Thanks for that. Thanks for that and showing it to the model builders out there who need to know that stuff. Very cool. Thematically, it's an inversion of what you'd expect, which can be as interesting as what you would expect. You know the old trope, don't meet your heroes. We met them here, and they were as good as we thought. Right? You could have easily said, oh wow, these guys don't measure up to what we thought. This is the Enterprise. They do measure up. We met our heroes. They were great. And it turned out that not every Orion was a pirate. And that was instrumental to solving this episode. You see, Tendi was upset at the beginning when Boimler inferred that her ancestors were all pirates. Oh no, you're wrong. This was discovered by scientists. In a roundabout way that ended up being a self-fulfilling prophecy. Who knows if Boimler was instrumental in creating the history that he himself came from, the history in which Tendi knew that the Orion scientists found it. It's a loop in that way. So, don't judge a book by its cover. Maybe these Orions really are scientists. Maybe they're not. But it goes to show you you know? Don't let your preconceptions about things take a hold of you, you know? You should challenge them, lest one day those preconceptions come to challenge you. And that theme ran thick throughout a lot of this episode. It's muddied when Mariner shows up and becomes a lot harder to watch. When Strange New Worlds becomes more lower decky than Strange New Worldsy, it becomes a little bit more confusing for me about what's going on, because we're in that kind of genre tone clash point of view. Again, could have been horrible. It wasn't horrible. That's coming from someone who likes Lower Decks. Genuinely, I think it's a fun time. Plot-wise, what plot? There's almost no plot here. This is a bare bones, paper-thin plot with which to set up interesting character interactions. It achieves that perfectly. So I can't really fault the plot that too much. I would have liked a little bit more to chew on. Maybe more scenes on the Orion ship, spend the money, get to see some of that. Would have been cool if we got to go on the outside of the ship to get the Heronium. But just based on what we have, the skeleton of the plot sets up this sequence of interesting character interactions perfectly well. We're winning on basically every front, but to me, it just didn't knock it over the park in a really extreme way. It just kind of knocked it into the park. We're just knocking it, and it's staying in the park. I could have did without all this this referential dialogue, all this stuff about fanboying out over all these things. It was a little bit much for me. The amount of congratulatory dialogue it was starting to grate on me. It's a little much. I like my Star Trek like a nature documentary. We're just a camera sneaking into this world, seeing what's up, shooting it very basically, just to get the point across. It's very dry, it's very boring. That's where I grew up. Sorry to say. And for all those reasons, I'm going to have to go ahead and give this episode a reasonable 6. Didn't quite like it as much as the last one, but it's not that bad. This is a 6 out of 10. I may return to it. With that out of the way, it looks like all of our future episodes have been moved up. So we're going to have another episode this Thursday. Man, starting to sweat here. This is a lot of work for me. But I'm going to keep my nose to the grindstone, and we're going to get through it. I'm Lieutenant Merc, and I'm going to see you when next time I see you. So long.